Minister statements. Minister of Environment and Natural Resources.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I seek unanimous consent to waive Rule 34(6) so that all minister statements filed with the clerk can be delivered today. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Minister. The Minister is seeking unanimous consent. Any opposed? No members are opposed. You may conclude Minister's statement. Minister of Environment and Natural Resources.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, colleagues. Mr. Speaker, this Assembly made a mandate commitment to improve food security in the Northwest Territories through effective co-management of wildlife, including caribou. Our government has therefore taken significant steps with our co-management partners to support the recovery of our struggling barren ground herds, including investing an additional $6.8 million over 5 years for conservation and recovery efforts. The Bathurst and Bluenose East herds have traditionally been an important food source for a number of our communities and are central to the culture, identity and way of life of many Indigenous Northerners. Despite extensive actions by the Government of the Northwest Territories and our co-management partners to support caribou conservation and promote herd recovery, both herds continue to decline, and in just the last 3 years they have been reduced by half. Mr. Speaker, since receiving the latest population results last fall, our government has moved quickly to put a number of initiatives into place in an effort to slow down the decline. Environment and Natural Resources has worked closely with the Clecho government to submit 2 joint management proposals to the Wekwisi Renewable Resource Board, 1 for each herd. These management actions are being reviewed by the board, and we expect to receive their decisions in the coming weeks. We continue to work with the community of Delaney to support their community-based caribou plan for the Bluenose East herd, and are supporting other communities interested in forming their own conservation plans for the barren ground caribou. Some of the conservation and recovery efforts led by the department include doing population surveys every 2 years instead of 3, so we can detect changes sooner and, if necessary, adjust our management approach. We are increasing the number of satellite collars we use to give us better information on how caribou use their range. We are also keeping a close eye on the health of the herds through regular composition surveys and by providing financial support for on-the-land caribou monitoring programs such as the Clecho Government Boots on the Ground program and the Nihatni Dene Rangers run by the Lutsoke Dene First Nation. In addition, the Government of the Northwest Territories continues to support community-based harvest monitoring programs in a number of communities across the Northwest Territories. This winter, we introduced a new incentive program targeting wolves in the winter range of the Bathurst and Bluenose East herds. A total of 57 wolves have been harvested under this program to date, Mr. Speaker. This is an increase of over the average of 40 wolves per year harvested in the North Slave since 2010. It is also important to note that all of the wolves caught under this program were in the area where barren ground caribou wintered this year, rather than around communities and landfills, which was the case in the previous 8 winters. Mr. Speaker, the pressures facing caribou also includes habitat loss in critical areas on their winter range, mostly due to wildfire. The Department plans to establish a new fire crew in Wekwiti to allow us to detect and respond to fires more quickly in the heart of the Bathurst caribou herd's traditional range. We are working closely with elders and land users in the North Slave region to help us identify key caribou habitat and corridors that we will aim to protect as values at risk during the upcoming fire season. As you know, Mr. Speaker, we are very close to approving a range plan for the Bathurst herd. This plan was developed together with 21 organizations and agencies, including Indigenous governments, industry, and wildlife management boards from across the Bathurst range, in response to community concerns about the impact on the development of caribou. Through this range plan, we are working together to support the Bathurst herd in a way that recognizes the importance of conservation and economic opportunities for Northerners. Mr. Speaker, I have said many times, protecting caribou is a shared responsibility that requires the commitment and action of multiple partners across multiple jurisdictions. Our co-management system here in the Northwest Territories is strong, but caribou are not confined to our borders. We need to work with our neighbours in Nunavut as well. That is why I traveled to Kugluktuk in April and met with the Honourable Joe Sivictak, who is both the Territory's Environment Minister and Premier. Our governments discussed the Bathurst and Blue Nose East herds, which calf every year north of our border in Nunavut, as well as the Beverly herd, which was also surveyed in 2018. Premier Sivictak agrees the current declines in these populations are alarming and that immediate and strong action to support herd recovery is needed. As a result, our governments have agreed to host a meeting of key co-management partners from both jurisdictions to discuss how we can work together to support the recovery of these herds. We will work together on the wolf harvest incentive programs in both Northwest Territories and Nunavut and continue to support each other's research and monitoring activities, including on the land and community-based programming to improve our understanding and management of caribou. Mr. Speaker, the last few months have seen a lot of positive work to support our caribou, but this is just the beginning. It will take a commitment from each and every one of us to do our part to give caribou the support they need to survive and thrive. In the next few months, engagement will begin on the development of a recovery strategy for the Barren Ground caribou. This strategy will bring together the efforts of all management authorities across the Northwest Territories to protect Barren Ground caribou under territorial species at risk legislation and will guide our actions going forward. I would like to thank all of our co-management partners for their dedication and hard work and for helping to make what have been some very difficult decisions in order to support our caribou herds. The Government of the Northwest Territories is committed to continuing this work with our partners to ensure that together we make effective decisions about managing wildlife so our communities can continue to enjoy harvesting opportunities now and into the future. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Minister. Minister statements. Member